Welcome to the Fantasy Thinker. I'm Jared Quartermanch, and we are back once again with Comics versus Prose, number 7. And I'm emphasizing that 7 because Dark Horse Comics continued the series as Assassin's Apprentice II, number 1. And I never liked how comic book numbering systems went. It's the same book. It should just be the next number. Um, but I don't know, for marketing purposes or what have you, whatever you want to call it, they decided to go with Assassin's Apprentice 2, number 1, because for some reason, number 1 looks shiny on a cover. And there's some sort of imagined or real, I don't know, connotation to buying a number 1 issue. So let's get right into it, though. The complaints aside, um, this is scripted and adapted by Jody Houser and illustrated magnificently by Ryan Kelly. I can't get over how great a job this guy is. This artist is really top notch, and he's doing a wonderful job at really getting the flavor of this book, as you've seen in the past 6 episodes. To delve right in on page 1, we're starting in the middle of a chapter, because if we ended the last issue in the middle of chapter 7, and we're starting issue 7 in the middle of chapter 7. And so and that's fine. It actually starts at a good spot. It's like summer came, uh, bringing warmer weather and the Otislanders to our coast. And some are trading and some are raiding. So we get that set up right away. We get Ryan Kelly's gorgeous artwork, which is bringing us back into the flavor of this realm. You see, you got the nice castles, you got the ships, you got the horses, and the people there gathering around the tables, and all this is Kelly's reintroduction to the world here that he is giving to us and letting us know um, how it all looks. And also we have, like, the coloring is amazing too, because that panel there is used to indicate something happening somewhere else outside of Fitz's purview, but something that he knows about. But and so that's I love how the colors do that. And the color in here is done by Jordi Belair. um, and so wonderful stuff there. That first page pretty much follows one page in the book here, and it's pretty close to the actual words in the book. Then we move into the next page 2 here. Um, I don't have any special notes except for the fact that this section here is um, is a lot of exposition, and there's a lot more in the book than there is in here. But they do a pretty good job of giving us the gist of what's going on here. And basically, Fitz is being prepped for a mission, and so um, we we have to we get that sense. And so that second page in this book carries on for about 2 pages in here, and then we go to the third page, where we are still have Burek trying to explain to Fitz what um, how he should act on this mission. And Burek doesn't know what Fitz's real mission is. He just thinks Fitz is being taken along for something or other. Um, and it's funny because in the book you get a lot more explanation from Fitz's point of view about how Burek is explaining this to him, and Fitz already knows what he's saying. He already gets it, and he's listening with a kind of almost a almost disdain, because he's like, yeah, I'm way beyond this. I don't need these instructions. And Ryan shows that in the artwork pretty well, because you just could look at the expressions on Fitz's faces there, and it really shows. And even the lettering, I don't know if you can see that lettering there, and yeah, it's kind of a little more italicized to bring out the sarcasm in Fitz's response. So, like I said, just done very well. And so that's the end of page 3, where we move on to that's done pretty close to the book here. And then page 4, we get an introduction to the Fool. Let's see here. Yeah, the Fool comes in, and the Fool, we get a little bit of a introduction to him here. Once again, we've seen the Fool before, but this time he happens to come across Fitz. As Fitz was walking outside and by himself, and the Fool delivers him a little bit of a prophecy of sorts, even though Fitz thinks he's just mumbling nonsense. Um, the Fool's actually, given a little prophecy, and it's not like this big prophecy that's going to change the world or anything like that, as far as we can tell. Maybe it will. Who knows? But it seems so simple, and it really is the crux of this whole issue. The adapters did a good job in making this issue a single theme and a single focused story, even though it crosses over, um, about 2 chapters in the actual novel. Half a chapter, then chapter 8, and then half a chapter 9. And so I thought that was really, really cool how they wrapped a theme up into the single issue of a comic. And part of that theme is this little prophecy that the Fool gives Fitz. And we get a little insight into what Fitz thinks the Fool is. He suspects he's not 100% human, and so this is a little the injection of fantasy into this pseudo historical medieval setting, and then so we get this injection of the supernatural, even though what other race could the Fool be? We don't know that yet. That's all up in the air. Um, and so over the next 2 pages here, um, we see. Let's see. Yeah, we see. Uh, there was one line in here that said, "I stared back uncertainly, without word or movement," and that's shown beautifully in the artwork right there in that box, where you can see that's kind of what Fitz is doing in that moment. And so the art is doing a lot of heavy lifting here with conveying scene in from to us that would be in the book in the manner of description. And so I think that's very well done. And we get you know that encounter with the Fool, and then we move on to the next page, where the Shade is giving Fitz his real mission. And so that's on page 6 there. Interestingly, in the book, there is Slink I think it's a cat. I don't remember it, but or maybe a ferret. I gotta look that up. But there was something perched on Shade's shoulder in the book that's not shown in the comic. They kind of had to make room for stuff like that. Um, there's certain things you gotta you can only put so much into the adaptation without making it too unwieldy for both the art and the length of story that you need to put into these pages. It wasn't a big loss. And so the dialogue in here is pretty much taken word for word out of this section. It's only like a page long. We move on to page 7. There's an excellent transition panel. Let me see here. It's a pattern we're often seeing too often. Yes. There's a nice transition panels at the bottom of page 6. Is that 6? Let's see here. Yeah. Where they're telling you what's happening in the realm and giving you pictures of what's happening in the realm, and so that it's not just two talking heads. You're actually seeing some action shots from the artist to actually show what's going on. And so there's nice transition panels. And then we move to the next page, 7, where Shade, he like begins a new subject. And so that transition from them talking on this page 6 to show what's happening in the realm and then transition to changing the subject on the next page allows, as the viewer of the comic transitions from one page to the next, it fits together, and it allows you to reset your mind on a new conversation, which that's the sign of a good comic, when it transitions well from page to page. And so the dialogue on that page is pretty much word for word from the novel, um, and it's only like a 3/4 of a page long. And then we go to page 8, and there was an interesting change in dialogue where Fitz asks Shade, "Would I ever be ready?" And he's talking about for killing somebody as an assassin. And Shade in the comic says, "Perhaps not." In the book, he says, "Probably not." And I was kind of curious. I'm like, I wonder why the change in dialogue there. And I know that this is run by Robin Hobb. She's I think she's involved because her name's written by on the credits. Her and Jody Hauser. Um, so I wonder why there's a change in dialogue there from "probably not" to "perhaps not." Um, and what kind of subtlety does that indicate? Um, it indicates that I think a little less negativity on the part of Shade to go from "probably" to "perhaps," and so that's probably pretty key there. The rest of the dialogue on that page is pretty much exact. I mean, this first half of this comic is the dialogue is just like spot on to the book. And so let's see. There is a little bit of change of order on the next page and how things are done. Um, the dialogue is mixed up with some pictures, like for instance when you see Shade preparing chemicals in a mask and stuff like that. That's actually explained later in the book than it is shown in the comic. And then on to page 10. 9. Yeah, these go by pretty quick in here. Yeah, and 10 and page 11 is all dialogue taken directly from the book, and then it ends on page 11, ends chapter 7 in here. So we've gone through almost half. Yeah, we've gone through over half a comic here, and only half a chapter. So we are moving on. Cheers. To chapter 8. Chapter 8 in the novel, there is a large section of exposition in here that is not included in the comic. So the adapters chose to leave a lot of this out. There's let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 6, 7, 8, 9, maybe 9 pages left in the book that is left out of the comic, and that was an interesting choice. There's there's commentary in here that you don't get in the comic about how Fitz didn't know what was going on, and how people assumed he knew what was going on, and he actually didn't. And there's commentary about his him being a spitting image of chivalry, his father, and there's commentary um, about some of his traveling companions. One of them named Hans, and there's names of the horses and stuff like that that they're traveling with, and about how it took 5 days to reach Neat Bay. That's where they're going. So there's a lot in there about that. We finally get we get Fitz's interaction with an old noblewoman who's giving him a really hard time along the trip, because he's the one who's supposed to be watching out for her and taking care of her needs, and she insults him, and she finally that whole travel part that takes the full 8 pages in here is only like 1 page in here, with minimal dialogue between Fitz and the noblewoman he's supposed to be taking care of. So finally, we get to after all those pages of in here in this book of exposition and stuff, we finally get to that. And we finally get to the uh, dinner party at Kelvar's in this place that they're going to. And they say this is where Fitz figures out that, because he might have to poison Kelvar, according to Shade. This was his mission. He had to find out what was going on. So he's observing him at dinner, and he hears all the grumbling, and he hears all the stuff in the book here. There's a lot about the impressive display of good food abused in the name of fashionable cooking. I love that line. That was a great line, and that was not in this book. And I underlined it because the artwork shows the display of food and stuff like that, all that stuff that's going on, and you don't really get a sense from the artwork that that same sarcasm that the good foods is abused in the name of fashionable cooking. You don't really get that from the pictures. You just see the feast laid out. It looks ostentatious, in the comic, like it would from a commoner looking at a nobleman's feast. Um, but you do get what Fitz is observing in the comic, and that's the important part. Um, and so later on, Verity questions Fitz about what he what he observed, and so that it's taken out here, um, and there is there was a little bit of extra dialogue from one page to the next. Like in the comic, Verity asked him, "Well, what did you observe, and what do you have to tell me?" Whereas in the book, it was only, "What do you have to tell me?" So that was interesting. And then there was some exact dialogue on this page. We once again returned to that, so that was like an important section to get across that the comic the adapters did very well. Um, and then we get to the next section, which is moving into chapter 9. So we crossed a lot of territory in those few pages that in the comic that was in the book. That there's a lot of stuff that was skipped over in the name of expedience, and in order to tell a comic book story in a quality adaptive form. And I think they did a very, very good job at picking and choosing what they needed to pick and choose. Everybody has, people always have their own opinions about what may be important and what may not be important. And when it comes to making it an adaptation, you really have to bear down and try to figure out the key points to the story that need to come across. Um, and to be honest with you, I haven't seen it done much better in comics than this series is doing it, which is why I'm doing this, because it's really good. It's fun. It wouldn't be fun if it sucked. so, uh, so there. Anyways, we move into chapter 9, and chapter 9 here actually gives some background information on, in the, how all the chapters in Assassins Apprentice has that little italicized um, what do they call it? Little beginning section there, um, extraction and what have you. But anyways, it gives you a little bit of information about the Fool in this chapter 9 excerpt, and that actually relates to what we found out back on page 4 in the comic. So that was interesting. That was very interesting how they went ahead and took that and put it in an earlier position in the comic. Um, I know these glasses make me look old, but hey, what are you gonna do? Anyway, the the comic then, let's see. Um, Once again, the comic goes into using um, food in the pictures without describing the food like it does in the book. The book goes into detail about all this, the food that people eat and stuff, and what they're doing. Um, in the comic here, they do a lot of showing, and there are a lot of showing about what they're eating, and it looks very, very nice in the comic. You can really, if you really, there's a lot of detail put into those kitchen scenes, and you really look close, you can pick out a lot of stuff that's going on in the background. And so once again, the artwork is just really, really done well in his books. Um, and then he comes across the what he thinks is a common woman with in the book. He first thinks it's a baby. And I found that very interesting, because that is definitely not conveyed at all in the comic. They kind of skipped over that part and went right to the dog, right to it being a dog. So in the book, you at first you're like, oh, there's a sick baby or something like that, but then it's eventually given away. That's a dog. And in the comic, they kind of just went right to the point and said, hey, it's the dog. And so the in the comic, it's a little more obvious that it's the dog you saw earlier. Um, Whereas in the book, there was a little bit more mystery involved, but Fitz is quick. He figured it out fast. So Fitz goes and he gives this girl a lot of grief about why this dog is sick, and he's really angry about it. Of course, we know that he has that magical ability to empathize with animals, and once again they show that as that weird red and yellow dialogue box that is the thoughts of the animal, which is which in here in the book they don't do those. They don't actually have words as thought of the animal. She just explains in the book how the animals may be feeling. So we get that, and we get also this is where the prophecy comes true, where he uses uh, something greased up to save the dog's life by getting a bone that was lodged in there out of the dog. So that is Fitz's inroad into um, appealing to this girl who ends up being the wife of the Kelvar. Um, and so he uses this opportunity to try and get her to suggest some changes to Kelvar's policies. So he's using his spycraft to change policies. So that's pretty good, especially for a 13-year-old boy. But he was well trained by Shade. So and uh, and so um, there is one. Oh, there was one instance right before that where the artwork really showed, because in the book it says she looks up at him stricken, and I just thought the artwork conveyed that very nicely right there. That's just very well done, so well drawn. And so she she questions him a little bit, but then he tells her that in order to convince her to talk to her husband, he says, "Oh, I had a dream." And so I really like how the artwork pictured his dream and how he was describing it to her, and gave that little pink coloring there. So that was on the part of the colors, very well done. And so that was really cool how that was portrayed, and it was portrayed. The dialogue was pretty direct out of here, and then the next page, the dialogue is very direct. Um, and but the last line in the comic, it says, "It seems like Shade would have to wait a little longer for me to understand his silence." Um, that is not in the book. It might be in further on in the chapter here, but I had to stop there because then it went into other stuff that is not in here, and I got to see if it's going to be in next month's episode. So I am stuck in between, in the middle of chapter 9, page 162, as I wait for next month. All right, so that is Comics versus Prose number 7, Assassin's Apprentice number 7, Assassin's Apprentice 2 number 1, and that is the comparison I have for today. I hope you enjoyed that. Please let me know in the comments below. Please like and subscribe if you like this. And whew, be good to each other. Thank you.